Good morning. This is Robert Goodman here on Positive Stroke, Staying Clean. And I'm so blessed to be here, a part of your recovery. And I've been able to share about my recovery. And today we're going to talk about protecting your recovery. You know, after I've completed the 12 steps of the program of recovery, after having the spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, and as I move forward in living life on life's terms, keeping clean one day at a time, and my life has gotten better. And I'm growing and building a new way of living and a new life for myself. I must protect the work that I did to myself for my recovery, the steps that I worked on, the things that I've overcame, cleaning the wreckage of my past. I must now protect what I worked so hard to achieve, and that's my recovery. And how do I do that? By keeping the focus on Robert. That is the most important thing I could do for my recovery today, is to keep the focus on myself, because I understand what active addiction has done to my life. I lived in active addiction for 40 years. And as I worked the steps, I seen what I've done to myself and others in my active addiction. And I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the person that I was in my active addiction. So I went down a road that I did not know where it was going to lead me in my recovery. But I chose to stop driving the car and to learn something new, because my way was not working. I stopped being stubborn and bullheaded and destroying my life and making things difficult for myself by the actions I did in my active addiction. So I must protect my recovery, because recovery has made my life better. It made my life better. But I'm going down a road that I know nothing about. I never lived the life of recovery. I never did the next right thing. I didn't follow the laws of the land. I was not a productive person of society. I was doing things my way. And the step work that I did on myself made me look at myself for the person that I was, and not the person that I'm going to project myself to be. I learned in recovery that by me keeping the focus on myself and working on my faults and the things that I've done to myself and the things that hurts me in my growth and becoming the best that I can be, living life on life's terms, living the best life in recovery, I had to change my behavior. I had to pay attention and learn exactly who Robert was, and look at the bad things that I did not want to face, the things that I hid from others because I was ashamed of my actions. But the things that I was hiding and ashamed of was helping me stay in my active addiction and living the life of pain and misery on a regular basis, because I was so stubborn to change my behavior. Yes, recovery has opened my eyes about myself. So as I move forward in my recovery, my life is getting better. I'm going down a road I have nothing to understand about this road, but that my life is getting better. Where it leads me, I do not know. But I know it's better than my active addiction, because as I live one day at a time, my life has gotten better. I've seen the faults of myself and the direction where I need to go to live my best life. Recovery taught me a powerful lesson that I cannot change people, places, or things, but I can change myself. I can be an example to others by the way I walk and carry myself. And as I travel in active recovery, my life has gotten better. As I did changes on myself, my life has gotten better. But when I travel this road of recovery and doing the next right thing, it doesn't mean that everybody around me is going to do the next right thing. They live their lives in the way they choose by the choices they make. And the program of recovery says I cannot change people, places, or things, but I can change myself. So I must accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, which is me, and the wisdom and the wisdom and the wisdom to know the difference. Recovery is a beautiful thing because it teaches you about yourself, how you feel about things, and how things affect you. But you get to look at yourself openly and honestly where you can make the right decisions. The interesting thing is that in order for me to get to the point where I'm at today, that it was a power greater than me that restored me to sanity. That recovery has saved my life. That a power greater than me, which I choose to call as God, watched over me while I was destroying myself in active addiction. And until I gave up will and understanding about my direction and tried something new that I did not know where it was going to lead me, my life got better. It let me know that my direction was wrong in my active addiction. It let me know that I was destroying myself by the things that I was doing to myself because I choose to not change. I was stubborn to not change. I wanted to do things my way, and my way did not work. It just led me further down the rabbit hole, and it gave me pain and misery. I made life difficult for myself. But in recovery freed me from the prison of active addiction. Recovery taught me about learning about Robert. Recovery gave me steps to follow so I can learn about Robert, what he did in his active addiction, how it affected others, and the damage he did to himself and others. Also, recovery taught me that I have a disease. And it's called addiction. And the only way that this disease can be arrested is not to use and abuse the drug that led us down that path. Mine was cocaine. But the interesting thing is, when I relapsed way back when, and I knew about recovery, it didn't feel the same way in using it anymore. I felt guilty about relapsing because recovery changes your view of addiction. When you relapse, it changes your view. Some people, when they relapse, they're so ashamed that they don't want to come to the rooms of recovery and ask for help. But the interesting thing is, you don't have to do that to yourself. We're all imperfect people and we make mistakes. We are happy that you come back to the rooms of recovery. We are happy that you gave up, that you found out it wasn't working, that the choice that you made just sent you back down the rabbit hole. that you don't want to go down there, that you are humble enough to come back and save your own life. Nobody can save another person from active addiction. Only a person can change themselves to change their behavior and find a new way, which is recovery. They have to find their way, just like I found my way. I can be an example to others by the walk in my recovery. By me listening to the message and not the messenger, but listening to the message, I may learn something. A lot of times, I remember in my early recovery when I would hear the blessings of recovery and how people overcame things and how they was and what they had, I would get an attitude. Because to me, it felt like they was bragging, but they wasn't bragging. They were sharing their story, what addiction did to them, how they overcame situations, how they worked themselves in recovery, and this is the fruits of their labor. But my shame and hurt of what I experienced in my active addiction made me feel that way. That I was jealous of what they had. When I looked at myself honestly and openly, I was able to correct my behavior, my thinking, my walk in recovery. When I look back at my addiction and where I'm at today, and as I have years in recovery, I'm seeing exactly just how much damage addiction did to me. I see just how much it has changed my life and my perspective on things. But recovery is changing the way I look at things. But the old feelings sometimes prop up about situations and things that happen in my recovery. And I must be aware of these things by paying close attention to Robert, so I don't act on these feelings and emotions that pop up and I have no control over. I got no control of them popping up, but I have control over how I act towards them. As I live in recovery, I realize that there are times that I get very emotional about the pain and the things that addiction has done to me and has taken away from me, that tears come to my eyes. But I understand that these are feelings and emotions that I have to feel, that I have to go through to stay clean and sober. But if I medicate them or hide them, then they live rent-free in my head and they will end up sending me back down the rabbit hole into active addiction. These feelings let me know just how deeply addiction destroyed my life. By feeling these things that has happened in my life, and the tears come down my eyes, and the things that I've lost, it lets me know that addiction has taken so much from me. And recovery has given me a new way of life, a new way of living. Yes, I can't get back with a lot of things that I've lost. Yes, I can't get back the loved ones that I so desperately wish that was a part of my life. Yes, it hurts. But I will not allow addiction and the mistakes I made in my active addiction destroy my recovery. Because I've come a long way. Because I've learned about who Robert was and why Robert did the things he did in his active addiction. I understand how they affected me and how I medicated myself in order not to feel the pain and the trauma that I've experienced in my young age. I understand that I didn't have the knowledge and understanding to live life on life's terms. I didn't have the understanding to face and do the next right thing because the pain was so severe that I did not know how to deal with the pain and the emotions. So they lived rent free in my head, which was causing me a lot of pain and a lot of anguish. So I medicate myself so I wouldn't feel that pain so I can conduct and live a normal life. But what I did was medicate myself not to do the work on Robert to make Robert better. But recovery taught me a formula to work on myself, to understand myself so I can live my best life. Recovery taught me that I must live this life on a daily basis, looking at myself honestly and openly. I am an imperfect person, that I will make mistakes. I pay attention to myself. If I pay attention to myself, I will make less mistakes. And I will see the things that I need to change. Recovery taught me that I don't know everything. I only know a little. They say a human being only uses 1/8 of his brain capacity. And those that are genius use a little bit more than 1/8. But normal people normally use only 1/8 of their brain. So how can Robert say he know everything? Because my capacity of learning is limited. My capacity of learning is limited. Because when I learn something, I must understand what I'm learning. I must not let my feelings and emotions get in the way of me learning new things. You know, I'm going to share something with you. In winning a war, it's not the guns and the bombs that win the war. It's information about your enemy. It's learning everything you can about your enemy, what they're capable of doing, and what they have to do what they do. By you understanding your enemy, they can't hurt you the way they would if you're not paying attention to them. You know what to do, what buttons to push to get them to act without thinking, where you can hurt them and do the most damage. Information. That means you must listen to openly, honestly, and without feelings and emotions, and go by facts so you can come to the right conclusion, so you can do what you need to do to destroy your enemy. And that's how wars are won. That is how wars are won. But when we allow our emotions or feelings get in the way of our recovery, we will lead back to our addiction. So we must look at yourself honestly and openly. Not with feelings and not with emotions, but by the things that you do and by the things you say. And another interesting thing is that in order to get information, you must listen. to what a person is saying. You must honestly listen to what a person is saying to get the information you need to protect yourself. My great-grandfather said, if you allow a person to talk more than 5 minutes about the same subject, they're going to be lying about something. Just allow them to talk. Allow them to express themselves so you just understand exactly who they are and what they're up to. These things protect your recovery. These things protect your recovery. I remember when I was in a work program, and I associated with people in the recovery work program. I associated with them, but I stayed up to myself because a lot of people in recovery programs do a lot of lip service. They wasn't living the program of recovery. And if you listen and watch, they tell on themselves. I watched in the program of recovery, the work program, that it was like a revolving door. A lot of people didn't last 30 days. A lot of people. And then there was a whole group of people that were gone by 90 days. Because they choose to do things their way. When I came into the program of recovery, when I was in the work program, I said to myself, Robert, you are old. You're not a young chippy. So you got to work on yourself so you can take care of yourself, so you can enjoy life on life's terms. You can't play with yourself. And I kept the focus on myself. People that I cared for chose to go back and do it their way. And I watched them go in and out. And I felt sorry for them. I felt hurt because I cared. Recovery taught me to care about my fellow recovering addict because they cared for me and they loved me until I could love myself. So when I see them go out, it hurt. I remember the first time I was in recovery. The very first time I got introduced to recovery. And I got attached to a gentleman, and I was the house manager at the Catholic Diocese in Paterson, New Jersey. And I gave a pass to a gentleman. We were friends. And his wife came in the next day, said, Robert, he went out, but he never came back. Is he here? I said, no. She said, would you please go look for him? Now, I was new to recovery. And when we found him, he didn't look like himself. Within 24 hours, this man did not look like himself. This is what addiction did to him. This is what drinking did to him. And it hurt me to my core. And at that point in my recovery, I wasn't strong enough to deal with a situation like that. I said, you can't beat addiction, so you might as well give up. And I went out down to the Passaic Reservoir, and I got high. all the way until it got dark, until I started hearing all these noises and creatures. I got paranoid and got the hell up out of there. And I stayed in active addiction for years. I wasn't strong enough to hold a position that I had to deal with that type of situation because my recovery didn't teach me enough information at that particular time. I wasn't in recovery long enough. When I came back to recovery, I was beat the fuck up. Addiction has beat me up, Addiction had beat me the fuck up. I was beat down. That's right. The second time when I came into recovery, I came from prison for embezzling money. So when I finally got recovery, it took a minute. It didn't come overnight. I had to bump my head because I kept trying to find it to do things my way. I'm going to try this way to make my life better. But now that I have recovery, that I understand Robert better, that I did the work on Robert to make my life better, that I look back at what I did in my active addiction, where I was, the age I was, and my mental state I was, I understand who I was at that particular time. I understand why I made the choices that I made. I understand who Robert was back then. And by that information, it allowed me to receive recovery in my heart and in my mind. So the point I'm trying to make, in order to protect your recovery today, you must understand yourself from yesterday. You must understand why you did the things that you did and the mistakes that you made that caused you to act the way you did. And when you understand why you did the things that you did, then you're able to change your behavior. Not to feel ashamed, but understand that you are addicted. You have a disease. It's called addiction. And you fell victim to it because you wanted to medicate yourself because you did not want to feel the emotional and the mental pain that the situation has caused you to be in. But recovery is showing you a new way of living and a new way of life. I hope what I shared today will move you to stay focused on yourself and to keep living your best life in recovery. Because if you don't keep the focus on yourself, if Robert don't keep the focus on himself, if Robert doesn't keep the focus on himself, he's doomed to make mistakes. And basically the same mistakes he made in his active addiction, because I was doing them things for over 40 years. So if I don't do the new way of living in recovery, my mind is going to fall back to the old way of doing things. And my mind's going to tell me that's the best way to go. And I'm going to fall right back down the rabbit hole. But if I keep understanding that what addiction did to my life, the mistakes that it's caused me to make, and the cost of pain and hurt I've caused myself and others, then I will not repeat those same mistakes again. This is Robert Goodman from Positive Strokes, wishing you a great Saturday. And remember, you are the most important person to yourself. By you doing the work on yourself, you make your life better. And you enjoy the fruits of your labor in recovery. You have a great and wonderful day.